Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for coming to the community Bhagavad Gita class. This is Anasuya, and I'm celebrating my 60th birthday with family and friends. I share from the heart, aspiring to live a God-centered life. And I wanted to share some of the scriptures that have inspired me. And so I want to recognize those that have joined us online. So we have Casey with Malini at the Sapatov Bhakti Retreat Center. We have Dira Govinda. We have Devin and Kanchabala, Valerie, George and Danielle, Rukmini and Susan. And then here in my home with the Christofferson family, I have my good friend, Kristen, who has been my friend since high school. And I have Lakshmi Priya, and I have the dear friend, Leah. So I just wanted to have a beautiful evening sharing from the heart. And I feel like it's such a blessing to have this opportunity and evening time with you to share some transcendental knowledge. So what I would like to share with you is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 10. And so before we begin, Lakshmi Priya is ready to serve as call and response if the Bhakti Retreat Center, yeah, thank you for muting. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Okay, so we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 10. And so I'm going to have the verse call and response with Lakshmi Priya, and then we will do the word for word. So let's do that a couple of times and see if anyone else online with us would like to chant. Okay. I'm very nervous tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm feeling a little out of my sorts. So I wanted to say another prayer before we begin. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Prashati Visatari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vedakadata Shri Vasati Gaura Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upasritata Bhava Jnanatapasya Uttamadbhavam Adgatata Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upasritaha Bhavo Jnanatapasya Uttamadbhavam Agataha Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upasritaha Bhavo Jnanatapasya Uttamadbhavam Adgataha Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upasritaha
Manmaya mamupashita.
Bahavo jnana tapasya.
Bahavo jnana tapasa.
Uttamad bhavam akataha.
Uttamad bhavam agata.
Would you like to chant?
Vitaraga bayakrodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Manmaya mamupashita.
Manmaya mam upasritaha.
Bahavo jnana tapasa.
Bahavo jnana tapasya.
Uttamad bhavam agata.
Uttamad bhavam akataha. Would anyone online like to chant the verse?
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Manmaya mam upashrita.
Manmaya mam upasritaha.
Bahavo jnana tapasa.
Bahavo jnana tapasya.
Uttamad bhavam agata.
Uttamad bhavam akataha.
Vitarago Bhavayakoda.
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
You would walk better with Manmaya Mam Upashitaha.
Manmaya mam upasritaha.
Bahavo Jnana Tapasa.
Bahavo jnana tapasya.
Uttamad Bhavam Agataha.
Uttamad bhava akataha.
Vitaraga Bayakrodha
Vitaraga bhaya krodha.
Manmaya Mamupashritaha
Manmaya mam upasritaha.
Bahavo Jnana Tapasa
Bahavo jnana tapasya.
Putamad Bhavamagataha.
Uttamad bhava akataha. Would anyone else like to chant the verse? Okay. We'll now go word for word. Vita, freed from. Raga,
Raga.
attachment.
Attachment.
Bhaya,
Maya.
fear.
Fear.
Krodhaha,
Krodha.
anger.
Anger.
Matmaya,
Matmaya.
fully in me.
Fully in me.
Mam, unto me.
Unto me.
Upasritaha,
Pashitaha.
being fully situated.
Being fully situated.
Bahava,
Bahava.
many.
Many.
Jnana,
Jnana.
knowledge.
Knowledge.
Tapasya,
Tapasa.
by penance.
By penance.
Putaha,
Puta.
being purified.
Being purified.
Mat bhavam,
Matvavam.
transcendental love for me.
Transcendental love for me.
Agachatha,
Agata.
attained.
Attain.
Translation from His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. The purport by His Divine Grace. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand that there is a transcendental body, which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. and so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such persons are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their affective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world: negligence of spiritual life, fear of a spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that underlies the frustration of life. To get free from these three stages of the material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of the devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamikcha Sindhu, the science of devotional service. Adushvara tata sandhu sangata pajanakriya tatanarta nivditisyat tatanishta rishtis tataha avasatis tato bhavas tataha primabhudanchate sadhankanam ayam pranam pravduhave bhavet brahmaha. Translation: in the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachments, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to the attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or in the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So by the slow process of devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations resulting from void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. Amagyanachandandasya ginanagyanasalakaya kakshanotam yena tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tatatai Svavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Rita Kadam Kalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Swagavadatam Sahagana Raganitalam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Radvaitutam Parajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanyam Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saga Lidatya Shri Vaishnavacham Pijacha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bano Gajapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kancha Karange Radhe Vindra Kipanashare Vishwanath Siti Ramane Hare Priya Vanshakapatarachascha Kripasindu Evacha Patidam Vaganajeshta Vaganesho Noel Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So that prayer is to help guide me to follow the spiritual guidance of my master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So from the Bhagavad Gita, these scriptures are handed down through disciplic succession, and so Prabhupada is our most recent and current link to these scriptures that we're reading today. And the Bhagavad Gita has been around for many, many decades. And it wasn't until Prabhupada brought it to the West that it became actually like very transcendental knowledge for love of Godhead that nobody knew that they really needed. And what I really love about Prabhupada coming to the West is that he was 69 years of age. And he endured such hardship coming on a freighter ship, and he suffered greatly. He had 2 heart attacks, and he came penniless. His spiritual master had asked him when he was young to come and preach and spread Krishna consciousness to the West. And having him here with us tonight is just as he were here in the 60s off of 2nd Avenue. Is calling out to Prabhupada. His Vani is here, and so he gives me some strength to give class tonight. I'm feeling very shy all of a sudden, and I was feeling really strong as I was preparing for this class. I was, I know my friend Kristen is giving me a thumbs up. So I knew that I wanted to give class on my birthday, and this community Bhagavad Gita class was filling up, and Damayanti had put out the word that May 11th was still available, so I quickly signed up for it. So here I am, and then I had a vision to bring everybody together, family and friends, to see where I'm at as I turn 60 into this new decade. And Lakshmi Priya and I had some time together earlier today, and so it was really beautiful that we have the service together at Prabhupada's house in Melrose. So Prabhupada's house is designed to be a refuge for anyone seeking love of God and seeking a personal relationship with God. And so Mother Lakshmi Priya has this beautiful gift of preparing prasad and giving people the space and ability to really connect with themselves and the divine. And so in this particular verse, what I like about this is that it kind of nicely encapsulates all that Prabhupada wants to convey through this transcendental knowledge for anyone who wants to get to know God and to have a personal relationship with God, and to have us be strong and to really not go into these tiny bubbles into the ocean, into the void, that we are all unique spirit souls in a human body. So it's, never was there a time that we did not exist with Krishna. And we have these individual qualities that are in our jivas, our spirit souls. And so connecting with those qualities is what I learned with Savatov. So I wanted to give a shout out that this not would have been available except for Bhakta Devin, who encouraged me to go to first a morning program, and then also with his encouragement to read the Bhagavad Gita. That was a class that was being held. And this is now my 3rd time that I just completed taking such a class. It's always ever fresh. That's what I love about the Bhagavad Gita, is that every time I read it, there's something new that comes to me that is what I need at that moment in time. And so that's what we're experiencing now, hopefully, with some realizations as we read through the verse and the purport, that something is coming to you that's bubbling up. And that's my phone, so sorry. Okay, I'll turn that up. So, so what I wanted to share with you is that this philosophy is about having a personal relationship with God, and that living a God-centered life is putting the one in front of a string of zeros. That's what gives it value. So with what this purport is giving us is, it can be really, really frustrating to live this life in this body at this time without guidance, without the Bhagavad Gita, without Srila Prabhupada, without having some knowledge about what that is all about, that we are all spirit beings having this human experience, and that we are not merging into oneness, and we are not devoid. So we are not going into nothingness. There's so much that brings me great relief from anxiety from everyday life, because everyday life is very difficult. And if I turn to the Bhagavad Gita, if I turn to singing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it instantly puts me back into my eternal being. And my eternal being is a joyful and beautiful child of God. And so that was my first contract that I had with Sabato, is to realize that I had a relationship with God, and that it was what I was denying myself, because it was easier to be miserable and to lay on the sofa and eat ice cream and worry about what's going to happen after the TV zones out. And I just feel so much more alive and fulfilled and ready to do service through the guidance of the Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada. I'm going to skip around just a little bit. There was something that my mother, the other night, she wanted to read something. And so what I really liked is that she is actually the first person who got me interested in wanting to know who I am. We had attended a funeral, her mother's funeral, and when she approached or was approached by family members to go up and say her goodbyes to her mom in the casket, it was an open casket, she refused to go, because she said, that is not my mother in that casket. That is an empty vessel. And I was more into pleasing others, that I went up and paid my respects to my grandmother. And when I did look at her, I felt like, wow, mom's absolutely right. There's nothing left in that body that resembles my grandmother and her qualities of who she was as a spiritual being and when she was here on earth. And so as I continued on my path of what does this all mean, I was easily drawn into the psychic world. I loved hearing from Sylvia Browne. And so mom has Sylvia Browne's books. So she wanted to read from these books. And these are just some things that came out of when I was reading from her. And I thought, wow, it's all connected. And so one reading was, what we on earth think of as birth and death are nothing but the mechanics by which we enter and leave the body we've chosen to occupy while we're here. We no more cease to exist when we vacate our bodies than we cease to exist when we vacate a house we've lived in and moved on to another one. The only difference is when we vacate our bodies, what we move on to is another dementia, as utterly familiar to our spirit minds as this world is now. And while we may not be consciously aware of it, our spirits, having had an eternity of practice, know exactly how to travel back and forth between the two dimensions, no matter which one we happen to be living in at the moment. So it's amazing that these readings were always available to me, and yet I didn't have knowledge. Like, this was a psychic. And so I was like, how much trust can I put into a psychic? And so reading the Bhagavad Gita and asking questions, like, that's part of the first initiation of going into who am I and what is this all about? And I didn't have answers. I wasn't finding it in the Bible. I wasn't finding it in these different these books that Mom had, and yet I was curious to know more. And so knowing that I existed before these 60 years on planet Earth, that I've had another whole different set of bodies, and I will have another set of bodies after this one I vacate. So what is my purpose? And so this is a great opportunity for me to take the next decade, several decades into my life of getting more sincere. And how can I serve God? How can I serve Krishna? And by doing that, I need someone who can give me that guidance, and that's Prabhupada. And so giving myself, looking at my aspirations, I know that I still have some work to do before I officially retire, but now I have such a wonderful platform from where I am in Melrose, and that things are already happening. It doesn't have to wait until Anne retires from Clay Electric. It's happening now, and it's going to continue to happen, and that I'm going to follow what his recommendations are, which following the regulative principles. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine that was from the lake earlier this today, and he was reflecting on my 50th birthday, and I'm not very happy to say that that's where he wanted to go the 60th birthday, and I said no. So I no longer have a taste for alcohol. I have no longer a taste for meat. I no longer have a taste for intoxicants. And so following these regulative principles is actually freeing. So I was sharing with him how much joy that I actually have being fully aware of my being and spending my time in reading the scriptures and talking about God, and then having an opportunity to be with others that want to have a relationship with God. And so it was a brief conversation, but I felt really strong and solid, and he respected my decision. And I feel like there's where the growth is before it would be more of a situation where I would want to make excuses or say you're right and I'm, and you're wrong, and I just let it be. I was just like, this is what's happening for me, and this is where I feel my strength, and I feel called to share myself in this way on my birthday. And I'm no longer interested in parties where there's alcohol and meat involved. So I feel really good about that. And I feel really blessed that so many people have joined this evening. And the transcendental love of God, the call for just having just moments of bliss is enough to carry me forward. Like, this is a hellish life right now. Everyone is suffering in some way. And yet when I read from the Bhagavad Gita, or in my Chaitanya Charita class, or I'm singing the Maha Mantra, it just brings me joy immediately. There's so much relief. There's just so much relief from this material world. And I'm no longer tired. It feels like energy just comes into the body and I'm restored. And so having an internal relationship with the Lord is exciting. It's like, really, like, what does that look like for me going forward? And so having read some pastimes of Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, it's like, what kind of relationship would I have if I were with the Lord at this moment? And So I'm feeling inspired to say, who's to say that they're not with us this evening? Who's to say that, we're having a spiritual gathering and the Lord is here with us. And it gives me comfort. And it gives me comfort that my family has the benefit of hearing. And I think that's the very first part of the 9 process step for devotional service is hearing and chanting. And so my family gets to hear me chant and gets to hear class tonight. And so I'm feeling reassured that he is here with us, that the Lord is here with us. So I'm feeling a little distracted because I can feel my family might be needing me. So I might need to take a break just a moment. Yes, I have a cue from my girlfriend Kristen that I again need to interrupt the service for Mom. I invite you, Mother Melanie, to ask a question if you'd like, and I will rejoin you as soon as I can.
Anasuya asked me to ask question, and what I want to say is that I organize those community Bhagavad Gita class for people in the community to have an opportunity to share themselves, their spiritual lives, their realization, their understanding, and share themselves in a way that's connect with their realization about self-realization, about bhakti yoga, about their relationship with Krishna, about their relationship with God. And it's so special that Anasuya decided to use this opportunity of the community Bhagavad Gita class to celebrate her birthday. I think it's very relevant because that's what birthday are about. If we really look at our birthday in the way the Western world look at it, in a sense, there's not really anything to celebrate, but I'm older by 1 year. And older by 1 year means, like, from the material consciousness, is that I have less time to enjoy my senses. And plus also after 40 or after 45, that means that every year my ability to enjoy my senses is also reducing. So in a sense, it's a strange thing that we want to celebrate birthday when all the birthday just tell us we are older, and how much of the Western society is about fighting old age. So there is a contradiction there. However, in a spiritual community, older people become asset. So turning 60 means I become more and more the wise woman of the village. I'm coming to a platform where I'm here to support the younger generation to live their life in a way that's going to be successful towards self-realization, towards fulfilling the purpose of their human life, because human life is short. It's a short time, maybe, between 60 and 80 years, maybe average, probably less than that. So that short time that we have, we can see, okay, what's the goal of human life? And I wish that there was more training from childhood, more training from our leaders of society, leaders of government, of really wondering what's the purpose of human life. Because if I'm a leader, then it makes sense for a leader to wonder, what am I leading and where am I leading? And in a Western society and in a materialistic society, it seems that it's missing. So it comes to a place of like kind of moving on its own and developing on its own without really a head, which usually when we don't have a really clear goal about where we are going, we tend to end up in places that are not very favorable for our satisfaction. You know, like many personal development or seminar that people go to, they are about goal setting, because we know that with the goal, with setting an intention, then we have more chance to get what we want. So without knowing the purpose of human life, then most life is kind of going without a head, without a direction, and leading to more suffering, wars, economic deprivation, dissension between people, difficulties even in family life, because there is no center of direction for human life. So I said enough, and so that's what the community Bhagavad Gita class is about. It's about each person sharing themselves. So I'm wondering if anyone have any question about anything Anasuya and Christopherson share until now, and we will keep the question for Anasuya to respond to, or the conversation. Anasuya, I did it. I spoke the entire time you were away.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Melanie. So yes, Mother is now situated. Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready to take on some questions and sharing and correction, whatever is inspiring you to speak this evening. Yeah, your love of God and your relationship with God and whatever comes to your heart.
I'd like to hear more about what attracted you. Like, what were those moments of bliss in the beginning for you?
Thank you, Casey. Yeah, so actually it was Mother Melanie singing my very first morning program that touched my heart so much that I was so mesmerized and my heart opened, and I couldn't help myself. Like I had to sing. And then when she asked me to lead, when she goes around and asks so nicely and nods her head and gives her eyes to you, I just couldn't refuse. And so that was the first, is touching my heart. And then as I shared with the Bhagavad Gita class, like I told myself I was just getting knowledge, that I was just doing the questions and answers, but I would spend like hours and hours on answering the questions. And my family like didn't know what I was studying, but they said, oh, she's studying so hard. That's so nice. We go on a family reunion, we're at Daytona Beach in a condo, and Anne is not at the beach. She's in the condo room doing her questions and answer for the next chapter's question. So my very first class with the Bhagavad Gita, I didn't realize what was happening. And one time during class, dear Govinda said, well, you're a devotee. And I was like, I didn't name myself as a devotee. And I was like, oh, and I was like, it was kind of like somebody named it. And so it was like, wow, I guess I really am a devotee of Lord Krishna, and I didn't even know it. And so that actually made it even more like nourishing and inviting, and gave me permission to ask more questions that were more confidential in my world of what I consider confidential, and I got answers. So I really liked that I got answers that made sense to me. And so yeah, so as I continued to come to programs, I became more aware of who was coming, and those that were steady, like I wanted to have a relationship with them, like I wanted to get to know them. So getting to know Damayanti and Garuda when they did their programs, like I really wanted to contribute. So then making a suite for a program was really special and endearing. Like I was doing service to God, and I loved singing while I was preparing whatever sweet that I wanted to make, or whatever Damayanti needed. So it just realized how much joy. It wasn't like a chore. It wasn't like a have to. It was like, I get to make a sweet. I get to make a salad. I get to go to the program and really enjoy what's going on. And then to get to connect with those that also want a relationship with God and hear from them. And like a lot rang true for me. Like it was just like, this is coming home for me. So, and then going to the Sabbative courses just gave me the space to have myself look at myself and go, what is it that I want? And I really wanted a relationship with the Lord. And then so my last contract that I did 2 years ago was, I'm adorable, playful, and powerful. And at the time I stated those qualities, I actually wasn't thinking about pastimes, but we just had a class on the Chaitanya Charita. And I was like, you know what? I want to relate to that as a cowherd boy. Like, I don't have to give myself a gender specific identity. So I was asked by the Atmananda who was facilitating to be a cowherd boy. And so it was really kind of refreshing. And so it helps me by having others like challenge my outside of the box thinking. Like, yeah, maybe once I had a pastime as a cowherd boy, that would be lovely. If that was, a beautiful experience that I could continue to meditate on and derive so much pleasure from. So I thank you for asking that question. That really got me excited to share.
Thank you for sharing yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Anasuya, Prabhu, for choosing that verse and really sharing yourself as it applied to, this verse and the different trap of spiritual life, of merging into oneness or disappearing into nothingness because of frustration of this material world, and then seeing your faith increasing and your desire to serve and accepting a spiritual master and receiving initiation. And it's inspiring for me to hear. And then when you left, I was speaking about aging, because you're aging, it's like a new decade.
Yes.
And how in spiritual community, aging means the person, like in materialistic community, aging means burden, basically. People cannot. My stepdad, he was aging. He couldn't eat the thing he likes to eat. He couldn't drink the wine he wanted to drink. He couldn't smoke what he wanted to smoke.
Yes.
So aging is a burden for the people who go through, and it's a burden for people who are around it too, because that people are put away. And then I can see, like for you, like aging, like, okay, you're 60, what you want to do is share wisdom, because you're becoming like more and more the wise woman around. Yeah. So I was wondering, like, what's your vision of like the next decade?
Yeah, that's so I'm still in that meditative thought, and it's more about community building. And so being in Melrose, I just see that Lakshmi Priya and I are going to be in service to the community in ways that I would not have ever dreamed of. So what that might look like, I'm not fully aware, but except that I do know I love bhajan. And so to me, as soon as I'm there at Prabhupada's house on a regular basis, that's going to be a standard gathering, because that's just something that we love to do. And then there's art walk. And so I see that, Sankirtan in the streets, distributing the holy name in word and also by books. So singing, and there's just so many opportunity to give awareness. And I loved Lakshmi Priya's sharing earlier with me today that she's meeting more of our neighbors, and the neighbors are talking about Prabhupada's house and what's happening there. and that people are actually like grateful, like that we're there. And one is willing to give up his home for extending our services while he's away in Colorado for many months. And so like these little miracles are happening, like the desire that like Lakshmi Priya had, that we need more space, we need more rooms to accommodate. And someone she barely knows is willing to open up their home to her, is just like beautiful. And so that's why I say I don't really know, but other than trusting that once I'm fully available at Prabhupada's house to do service, that whatever the desire is, Krishna will make it so. It's just, that's what I love also about this faith, is that really wherever your heart desires, that's what you get. So what is it that you really want? So do you really want to serve the Lord, or do you want to serve yourself? And so I'm finding more joy in serving the Lord than I am if I served myself. And so whatever that looks like, I'm for it. And personally, I was thinking I wanted to make garlands for the altar. So I love the idea of having a flower garden and creating garlands. So that's another service that I'm looking forward to doing. Yes.
Thank you. Wise response. Like really, what I appreciate about your response is that if your intention is to serve Krishna, and if your desire is very express in wanting to please him and please the spiritual master, you have complete conviction that service is going to come your way, and you're going to be engaged in a way that's purposeful and joyful and fulfilling.
Yes.
More than if you serve yourself. And,
absolutely.
And then specifically, like you want to engage yourself more and more at Prabhupada House and develop Prabhupada House in whatever way it's going to organically develop, with bhajan and preaching and artwork and then seeing the magic. So much magic happening already at Prabhupada House, and you're part of it. And you know that more and more, that as your desire increase, Lakshmi Priya's desire increase, that the sky is the limit of how Prabhupada is going to be served there. Thank you for sharing, very inspiring.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I like your conviction.
Thank you.
Prabhupada sometimes was saying, like, are you convinced? I experience you as saying, yes, Prabhupada, I am.
Yes, I am, Prabhupada. Ki Jai.
And your class was so good. I love all your classes so much, and I feel like you gave us a gift, even though it's your birthday. I love it all. I've heard this, I've heard both of these verses several times, and like you just said, it always brings something new. And I feel like the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna just like all of the time have this way of just giving us perspective on things we've seen so many times, like the fact that you had your contract as child of God, that just resonates with me. This is like what I was circling. And the way you found Krishna, I love that question, because it kind of like gives room for people like me that think it's silly, that what I liked about Krishna at first was that it was kind of like a mythological book. And it was like reading stories, and I don't know, I feel really thankful that you kind of opened up the space for that, because I've always felt silly. And I've heard Prima so many times, but tonight it's just really sticking, because I'm like checking in with my heart, and it's like the only time I ever really truly feel joy is, like you said, when I'm in service to God, or like doing things like this, or being a part of this celebration. And I'm just so incredibly thankful, because I always feel that relief too. It's so powerful and palpable and deep. And yeah, life is so miserable being in service to well, the wrong people, you know, you guys are the right people. I always feel seen in just a trust and purpose and intention. And I feel like you're all of your classes just keep leading me up. Like I almost feel like I'm ready to do my own class. Like I don't know, you're giving me a lot of courage. Like really, I have my notebook here and there's just pages and pages, and I think I'll talk to Lakshmi Priya about it first. But some other things that Mother Bellini was saying about being like ageless or you know, like age being a burden and that sort of thing. I think that Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, like I was saying this today, like you're so beautiful, because while our material body doesn't matter, there are signs on our faces and just, you know, evidence of where we've been, of how much we've laughed and how much joy we've had. And like as we get older and we have Krishna and we have the Bhagavad Gita and we have things that bring us purpose and intent, it's just, I don't know, I think aging is so beautiful, and your soul is ageless, but you remain just gorgeous, and maybe even not aging, because you just have so much joy and playfulness and youth and ease that comes forth, and every time you do a class, it's so much stronger and brighter. And I'm all over the place because, you know, it's baby business around here. But I just want to say thank you for having this class, and my heart feels really full, and I'm trying not to cry. But yeah, you brought me a lot of joy.
Thank you, Valerie.
you.
That's beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate your appreciation, and I'm glad that I brought you some inspiration and not feeling silly about, you know, studying the Bhagavad Gita and these mythical stories, because they're all true. They're all real. They're all beautiful. They're all eternal pastimes. Thank you. Anyone over here? You're good? Okay. Everyone's being shy over here. I just also wanted to express my appreciation for Daniel and George, who also joined us. Daniel and George came to Krishna consciousness and was, you know, we have this beautiful relationship before, and it's even stronger now. And so I also see the power of relationships when there is God in the center of that. There's so much depth to it. And I know Danielle and I just reached out recently and sharing what's going on in our lives, and it just feels good to have a God sister that I can reach out to. And it doesn't matter that you're in Pensacola or here in Melrose, Florida, that we continue that connection. And I see something in the chat. We are not able to unmute or turn on the video, but we listened to the whole class and greatly appreciate your class. And like Mother Mel expressed, your conviction. Happy birthday. Thank you, Mother Anasuya. That's from Damayanti Garuda. And also she had said before that, beautiful vision, Mother Anasuya. Thank you so much. So I feel complete unless anyone else has any other sharings that they'd like before we go in the next couple of minutes.
Birthday girl.
Okay. Kristen said lots of love. I'm sorry, Valerie, what'd you say?
Susan said, hey, birthday girl.
Oh, hi, Susan, birthday girl. Okay, thank you. Yes. And
what I wanted to share with you is just a deep appreciation for what I've always felt from you, which is a conviction to love all. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing I've appreciated on many different spiritual paths that I've traveled, and some more deeply, but I feel such a love from you to everyone. There doesn't seem to be that exclusivity, you know. The folks I've appreciated most on each path have a deep love that surpasses everything. There's just a depth of love there, a depth of a desire to serve. And I've felt that from the moment I met you, and I felt it this morning during our little birthday brunch. And I just want to share deep appreciation for you. Loving all is where it's at. And you're the bomb diggity. And I see a lot more loving all in your future. And you bring me to a higher place, closer to God. And I appreciate you and I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Susan. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
You
you.
got my girlfriend crying over here. She's like in tears.
Oh. Hugs to her and hugs to you. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I feel very blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Anasuya. Thanks for this class, and just a perfect way to honor a birthday, to remind us all about what our births are for in the highest sense. And I appreciated, I know aspects of your personal story, and this was very, in one sense, you shared about some something that could be called the beginning in this lifetime, about your grandmother and the casket, and your mother's wisdom, and how you were, wow, she was so on contract and so realizing chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. So that was yeah, and I appreciate hearing your evolving higher taste compared to, like, okay, when your 50th birthday, what you're interested in, and just like, wow, this is it, like spiritual growth. It's not just something abstract. And like, so Srila Prabhupada's giving us a process where we actually get a transformational higher taste. And I appreciate you very much as a support and inspiration for my Krishna conscious life.
Thank you so much, dear Govinda. Appreciate you.
All right.
Thank you, Krishna. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening together. And I'm just so touched by Kristen, because she's still crying on the sofa. She's just, the tears are flowing. She can't stop herself. And yet it's such a beautiful, beautiful way to end the evening. It's having my friend in beautiful tears. Thank you, Kristen. She can't express herself, but she's just beautiful right now. You are beautiful. Thank you. Hi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Bye.
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Krishna.
We love you.
To celebrate.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May you always remain at Krishna's lotus feet.
Hi, Krishna.